Hey Booktube, welcome back. It's Liz from Book Learning. Today I'm going to do a sort of year in review. 2017 has been a very interesting year, not necessarily my favorite year so far, but definitely enjoyable. I started a BookTube channel as a Lenten project to be able to put myself out there more and get more comfortable with being on camera. And I traveled quite a bit. I quit a job, started a new job in a completely different field. I've been sick a lot, probably because of the stress that I've felt this year. But in all of that, I've still definitely enjoyed reading and have learned a lot about what I like and don't like. I'm gonna try to scroll the 17 favorite books that I could not cull down any further from the year and just highlight some as I go, and the same with the movies, and just talk through some themes that I'm seeing in my reading. One of the things I noticed in my list of favorites from 2017 is that I like a very deep characterization. This has been true for the books I enjoyed at the beginning of the year and at the end of the year. My absolute favorite book of the year so far was one of the first ones I read, and it's Mr. Loverman by Bernardine Evaristo. I found it through Savage Reads, and I just fell in love with this character. I got a full picture of who this grumpy old fuddy-duddy was. He's kind of a flashier, conservative black man living in the UK who has been leading a double life. One in his traditional marriage, through which he had children and grandchildren, and the one through his gay, I wouldn't call it a marriage exactly because it's not a legal marriage, but his long-term relationship. And the whole book kind of really dives into Mr. Loverman's mind. You get a really deep sense of everything that's going through his head as he faces his mortality at the end of his life, and just trying to think of if he has lived his life well. And that's kind of true of the last two fiction books that I really enjoyed, The Painter by Peter Heller and The Gospel According to Jesus Christ by Jose Saramago. Both of these books similarly dive into the lived experience of a specific character and really work through coming to grips with one's life and how it is being lived, both in a sense of fighting who one is and coming to terms with that, and trying to just live without questioning oneself. So definitely recommend those books. Absolutely love characterization. I also, of course, really love a good plot, especially an historical plot. So some of the big books that I read this year and really loved are The Warmth of Other Suns by Isabel Wilkerson, Team of Rivals by Doris Kearns Goodwin, and The Confessions of Young Nero by Margaret George. So that's two nonfiction books and one fiction book that I recommended. And they all three of them really explore an historical moment very deeply, but with a lot of humanization. So it's not just another list of facts and dates. It's characters in this experience. likewise with The Other Slavery and the Moor's account. The Other Slavery is by Andres Resendez, and it describes Indian enslavement in the Americas, the North America, and goes into a lot of detail about the Spanish New World. And then the Moor's account by Laila Lalami is an historical fiction that describes an experience within the Spanish New World conquering, but from the perspective of a Muslim slave who interacts with a lot of Indian tribes at the time. So it has a plot. There's a trajectory. There's movement in the story that's being told, as well as movement within the characters that we are coming across. But of course, there's exceptions to the rule. For example, Lucia Berlin's short story collection, A Manual for Cleaning Women. If you read all of the stories over the whole collection, there is a sense of plot and movement, but individual stories are really focused on a single moment and really drawing out the atmosphere, the character experience, and there's not a whole lot of room for change within a short story as Lucia Berlin has written them. But still, I loved it. Also, I've read one really amazing self-help book, I guess you would call it, called Liturgy of the Ordinary by Tish Harrison Warren. And I don't have it anymore because I sent it. It's one of the books that I've sent along because when I first read it, I realized somebody else I knew would love to read it. And so it's not on my shelf anymore. Liturgy of the Ordinary describes specific... It kind of explores ways you can think about your regular everyday life and be grateful for what you're experiencing, or turn it into a meaningful moment. So whether you're brushing your teeth or cleaning the dishes or folding laundry or whatever, fighting with your spouse, whatever it is, finding a way to see grace in that moment and see it as a part of the full human experience. Of course, I really loved Lincoln's Melancholy by Joshua Wolf Shenk because it got me on an Abe Lincoln kick, and I'll try to do a video about my current Abraham Lincoln collection in a little bit. So likewise, in the films that I've watched, I've really enjoyed a mix of serious and fun, of deep character development, as well as moving plots. Some of the more intellectual films that I've enjoyed are I Am Not Your Negro and Chasing Train. Both of these are documentary looks into a specific person's life. I Am Not Your Negro being an exploration of James Baldwin, and Chasing Train being an exploration of John Coltrane, a great jazz artist. But I also like more silly things. So Guardians of the Galaxy 2, Wonder Woman, Kubo and the Two Strings, and The Emperor's New Groove. Why not? They're just silly and fun, and I think I typically look for something more entertaining from a film than I do from a book. But then again, I also read culinary mysteries like Espresso Shot, the Coffee House Mystery Series by Cleo Coyle. And I also watch more serious films. Some of the best ones that I've watched this year are The Inn of the Sixth Happiness, which after I watched it, it is so much better than The Sound of Music. It is it's another World War II story, but it has Ingrid Bergman in it, and I love her. And she is she's she feels a mission to serve in Asia, and what she ends up doing with her time, I don't want to give it away, but it's incredible. And I think that kind of goes along with the sense of you can do great things even in the most ordinary experiences, and the smallest choices. And you should also listen to yourself. I think that's probably the theme of my year, is trusting myself, just doing something, and believing that little things can have a big impact. So, other fantastic movies that I saw, Heaven Knows Mr. Allison. It's another old movie and I loved it. I also had never seen Sunset Boulevard. Why had I never seen Sunset Boulevard before? I had only known the reference. Are you ready? I'm ready for my close-up, Mr. DeVille. Definitely worth watching the entire movie, Sunset Boulevard. Highly recommend. And I'm slowly dipping my toes into more serious or scary types of things, both in reading and film. A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night. It's about a vampire woman in the Middle East. It's really fascinating. And I think it kind of matches the intensity that I could handle with The Blind Man's Garden by Nadeem Aslam, and Strangers in Their Own Land by Arlie Russell Hochschild. So it's more serious subjects, but it doesn't bash you over the head with a negative energy, if that makes sense. I just can't handle that, especially now that in my current job situation, I deal with that enough at work. So when I'm home or when I'm in my free time, I really want to make the most of the relaxation aspect of movies and books. So I probably will read a lot more fun stuff in 2018. I'm looking forward to reading what's on my shelf. There's too much on my shelf, you can see. And I'm also going to try, in 2017, I really wanted to diversify my reading in terms of time. And then I only read one classic. I read Frankenstein. I really enjoyed it. But I'd like to continue trying to put ones at the beginning of the publishing date for the books that I'm reading. And I also want to be less snobby. So some of the books that I've most enjoyed this year, they weren't to learn something specific. They were more to experience something, like reading Queen of the Big Time to learn more about my family, or escaping through culinary mysteries. And so part of my choices from books I've been able to buy this year have been related to trying to push myself away from my academic past, because one of the things I didn't enjoy about my history degree programs is that they really taught you to be critical, but not in like a constructive way, just automatically critical of everything that you were reading and critical of anything anyone said in any context ever. And that's, to an extent, that's an important skill when you're trying to examine knowledge in new ways, examine the past in new ways, but it's just not my style. Like, I don't care about being a household name or a brand name. It's not me. I only joined BookTube because I was hiding too much, so this was me forcing myself to do something new. But I really want to be less snobby with my reading, so trying to enjoy a fuller range of books. Not every book is for me. I'm going to do a book unhaul, sharing some of my least favorite books or things that I didn't enjoy reading this year, but really starting to enjoy a broader range of books. I don't think I will ever read a Nicholas Sparks novel, though. Just not gonna happen. And I think that will help me be more comfortable sharing more of my reading experience. So in my first videos for BookTube, I took copious notes when I was preparing a book review, because I wanted to share a complete picture of the book. I was doing what I did for my job, and I was doing what I did for academia, which was consult multiple secondary sources as well as the original text, and synthesize before you add your own voice so that you can be sure you know something new. Blah, 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 blah. And that just, I mean, it's useful, definitely. And I don't think I enjoyed doing my most recent book review of All Other Nights by Dara Horn, because I didn't prepare at all. But I'm sure there's a middle ground that will fit well for me, because I definitely enjoy deeper dives. I just can't. That's me. So, yeah, that's a very long-winded year in review. I didn't really go like book by book exactly. If you have any questions about the books or films that I've put up on the screen during the video, please feel free to leave a question or a comment in the comment section below, and I will see you soon. Thanks, BookTube. Bye.